Welcome back. All right, news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet for your Wednesday, March the 22nd. I'd like to start off by wishing my wife a happy birthday. I've already done that in person, but I'm throwing that out there in a video. It's always an emotional time of year when a birthday rolls around, and so, kudos to her and all that. So, you guys can go ahead and wish her a happy birthday in the comments. If you know her on Discord, all this other fun stuff. I don't think she's going to advertise it, but she advertised mine, so here we are. At any rate, yeah. So there you go. Now you know for future reference, you can put that in your calendar. Nobody cares. Anyways, all right. That being said, let's get into the news from around the National Hockey League and elsewhere in the hockey world. Starting with Ovechkin last night, setting a new record. He reached 40 goals for the 13th time in his career. Gretzky had 12. That means that he is one of four who've had more than 10, or 10 or more, I should say. Lemieux had 10. Dion had 10. Yes, you could make the argument of, well, if this guy's career wasn't shortened, he would have had more. Right, but the reality is that Ovechkin has the record. It's 13, and I wouldn't be surprised if he hits 14 next year. And for people who are paying attention, he has 74 goals behind Gretzky on the all-time list. It's really only a matter of time. It feels very similar to Kessel on the games played list. He was going to end up with the Iron Man record basically no matter what, and now he's just steamrolled that record and he just keeps playing every game. So yeah, 74 behind Gretzky's not too bad, and we'll see how long it takes for Ovechkin to catch and pass Gretzky. The QMJHL. So I haven't reported on this yet. This came down a while ago. Now the QMJHL has been tougher on fighting than any other league in North America that I know of. And this is something that they want to get out of the game. And the idea is that a lot of these kids that are playing in the Q, they're not going to play in the National Hockey League. And therefore, fighting is considered to be dangerous. Bare knuckle fighting is dangerous. But I want to get into the counter arguments in this as well. So basically, they're banning fighting altogether, meaning that if you fight in a game, you get a game misconduct for said fight. Now, they had already brought in where if you're involved in 3 fights, you get a 1-game suspension. It gets a little bit messier, though, because while the ban on fighting starts next season, Quebec Sports Minister Isabelle Charret has been asking for a suspension to be added just for 1 fight and saying the league isn't going far enough. So the new commissioner of the QMJHL is going to meet with her. An official announcement on how it's all going to work is expected in June. Currently the 3rd fight results in a suspension. Now, we get into fighting in hockey and what it is or what it isn't. One thing I will say is when you see a guy lock up in the NHL and you know there's a fight coming, if that guy doesn't know how to fight, it's really dangerous for the guy who doesn't know how to fight. And it's not just about throwing a punch either. It's about knowing how there's definitely a technique to it, knowing how to fight. We have seen videos of guys at practice learning how to fight from Ryan Reeves, Tom Wilson, whoever, right? And it's usually a skill player, and they're teaching them, like, here's where you grab, and here's what you do, and here's, the whole thing, because fights happen. Now, if you're in a situation in the QMJHL where they're banned, and then these players graduate from the Q, so yes, most players will never play pro hockey beyond the Q, and a lot of them, may very well not go through the full 3 years in the queue or 4 years in the queue, however long they're going to be there. Some will only be there for a year or two and then they get dropped or whatever happens, or they just drop out in general. But for those who graduate to that next level, it can be dangerous not knowing how to fight. And when we get to the Memorial Cup, if you have a WHL team where you're likely going to have some fighters, maybe the Q team doesn't. Again, these are not scenarios that I think are that important, but they're noteworthy and it's worth talking about. Fighting is a part of the game, but it is absolutely dropped off in terms of its frequency. So when the fights per game are looked at from before and after the QMJHL changed its policy around fighting and made it so that there was a extra penalty beyond the 5 minutes, fights per game dropped from a half a fight per game to a quarter of a fight per game, or 0.27. So they dropped by about half. And so we're already down to a point where in the queue, you have to go through 4 games to find a fight. Is basically the average, right? It's not something that's really that prevalent, but it does feel like there are those who really want to take it completely out of the game. And again, it's been in the game forever, and I don't see it ever being banned at the National Hockey League level. I mean that. The NHL, I don't think, has any desire to actually ban fighting. And I can't see it in the AHL. I can't see it in the ECHL either. But in juniors, the question's been asked. It's sort of like there are certain levels of hockey as well where body checking got taken out. And there was the debate at the time about how important it was for kids to learn how to take and give a check properly and how that was a skill. And I will agree that is a skill. But again, when you're dealing with little kids, right, there's a whole discussion to be had there. Now, fighting in the NHL is currently at a rate of 0.51 fights per game. So, one every other game. OHL, it's 0.67, and WHL, it's 0.77. So you have almost a fight per game in the WHL. You have a fight, well, 3/4 of a fight per game in the WHL, around there, and a quarter of a fight per game in the QMJHL. So I really don't know where this ends up heading. Does it go to other leagues? I don't think so. I think it's just going to be a QMJHL thing, and we'll see whether or not they add the immediate suspension after one game. But when you get somebody who is really lobbying to try to get fighting out of the game in particular, I don't know. They'll always say it's for the safety of the kids, but there's other things in hockey that are really dangerous too, and I think are far more common than fighting. But that's a whole other discussion for a whole other time. Let me know your thoughts though. Fighting in hockey at junior level. Keep it, discourage it, ban it. How do you feel? I know that the ban is going to be very unpopular, mostly with hockey fans. So again, it does feel like a fan's opinion doesn't necessarily dictate where a league heads with its policies. It's not just a National Hockey League thing. So, contract news, Jared Bednar has been given a 3-year extension by the Colorado Avalanche to extend now through 2027. There's no surprise to this. Bednar, of course, gets them to a Stanley Cup last year. I would think he's earned himself at least 5 years behind the bench because he got them back to the Stanley Cup and got them that championship. And he has been able to coach this team to wins with lineups that are lacking. As a result, or as an example, look at tonight. So Darren Helm returns. That's good news. But Rodriguez is out. Concussion symptoms for him. And Makar is out for his second straight game with a lower body injury. Makar has something that's been nagging him all year, I believe. And so it's remarkable how well he's played when he's been in the lineup. But this is the third or fourth time he's been out of the lineup for an injury, and they don't really get into what it is. And it's always day-to-day. It's always a day-to-day injury, even though I think the longest period he was out of their lineup was about 2 weeks. So no idea what's going to happen with this one. Montreal, Caden Gooley's out for the rest of the season. It's a high ankle sprain. So really strong when he's played. Very good game for him. However, he has been injured a few times during this season. Anderson is not traveling with the team to Boston. He's undergoing testing today, or going with the team to Boston. He's undergoing testing today. And if he's not traveling with the team, something's off. And of course, he got hurt last night. It's a lower body injury. It did not look good. He needed help getting off the ice. It looked like something that'll take him out for at least the next few weeks. At least on the surface of it, and if he's undergoing testing today, his season might be done as well. And so that'd be rough for Montreal to lose Josh Anderson, who's been an offensive force for them, especially just as they got Doc and Gallagher back, where they started looking healthy again, and out somebody else goes. Tyler Seguin could return from a leg laceration this week for the Dallas Stars. It has been something different without him. It has meant that Dallas has had to mess around with the lineup, move guys around, and it's honestly worked okay. So getting Seguin back is going to be a good thing. We'll see what Pete DeBoer does with the lines when he returns. But I don't see any reason why that won't be a good thing for them. And so Seguin back this week is good news. The bidders for the Ottawa Senators are in Ottawa and likely meeting with city officials, I would think, likely, doing their due diligence. And the plan is they're going to meet with Gary Bettman on Monday. So this process is going relatively quickly. We may want it to go a little bit faster, but it does feel like it's going relatively quickly. We should have an owner for the Ottawa Senators declared, I would think, over the next month or two. I'd be very surprised if we don't. And then we'll see what the plan is going forward, where the building's going to go, and or how the negotiations are going to go forward. when it comes to getting the new arena built, because the Ottawa Senators desperately need a new building. So yeah, fingers crossed on that one. Filip Hronek is likely to debut for the Vancouver Canucks when they play against San Jose tomorrow. That's a home game. I will be interested to see how their defensive assignments and alignments go and who's paired with who. But Hronek is a piece they felt they needed. They paid a high price for him, and now we'll get to start to see how things are going to work. They had a rough start to that game against Vegas. They had a decent finish, and Rick Tocchet saying, the same things, that there's an evaluation process going on about who's going to stay and who's not. I know I've seen some complaints from Canuck fans about Phil DiGiuseppe getting a lot of ice time, but he works hard. And I think really with Tocchet, I think it's hard work, and I think it's attention to detail that's making the difference for him. So he must see something with DiGiuseppe that's causing him to push him up the lineup. But at any rate, if you're on Team Tank, you should be fine with that. And if you're not, you should be fine with it too, because again, when you're this far out of the playoffs, you're not going to make the playoffs. You might as well mess around with the lineup in a way you can't next season when the organization has made it clear they plan to make a push for the playoffs. This is not a rebuild. This is going to be a team that they envision making the playoffs next season, or at least as soon as next season, and we can have all that debating over the summer on which teams that are outside the playoff picture are going to get in and which ones aren't. And I would imagine most will say Vancouver won't, but we'll see. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And I wore my Vancouver Giants jersey because I was talking about junior hockey and fighting. I was like, hey, WHL's #1, so gotta wear a WHL jersey. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.